Sometimes you see two things happen that don't seem connected at all, but when you put them together, they tell a much, much bigger story. That's exactly what's going on in real estate right now, and it could completely change the game. Okay, so check this out. At their big annual conference, the National Association of Realtors, we all know them as NAR, they did two things that seem, well, totally contradictory. First, they finally got rid of the rule that you had to be a realtor to get into the MLS. That's huge for competition. But then in the same breath, they shot down a proposal to make agent referral fees more transparent. So on one hand, they're opening things up, but on the other, they're kind of shutting the door on transparency. So that's the puzzle we're going to dive into. These two moves seem to be pulling in completely opposite directions. And figuring out why actually uncovers this massive opportunity for the entire industry. So what does happen when you smush these two decisions together? Well, you get this really interesting conflict. But more importantly, you get a massive, massive opportunity. See, the moment NAR said, hey, let's open up MLS access, you had local leaders all over the country just raise their hands and say, whoa, hold on a minute. And their big hang-up? It all comes down to the Realtor Code of Ethics. This is the line you hear everywhere, right? The big worry is that if you let all these non-realtors into the MLS, they won't have to follow the same ethical rules and professional standards will just fall off a cliff. And look, on the surface, that sounds totally reasonable, doesn't it? But is that what's really going on here? But what if we're asking the wrong question? Let's flip this around. What are we actually trying to protect here? Is it the public? Is it the agents themselves? And maybe the biggest question of all, is this National Code of Ethics the only way to do it? To get to the bottom of that, we've got to break down what the Code of Ethics really covers today. So think of the Code of Ethics as having two main buckets. The first bucket is all about duties to the public. Being honest, handling money properly. But here's the kicker. Pretty much all of that is already covered by state license law. That law applies to every single agent, realtor or not. And let's be real, state regulators have way more teeth than any professional association ever will. So the whole protecting the public argument, it doesn't really hold water anymore. That's already handled. The real issue, the thing that agents are actually worried about, is in that second bucket, professional cooperation. It's the rules of the road for how agents work with each other, accurate listings, rules for showings, that kind of stuff. The fear is that they'll be playing by one set of rules, and the non-realtors will be playing by another. Now, those are totally legitimate concerns. But here's the thing. They can be handled, and maybe should be handled, at the local level. And we don't even have to imagine what that looks like because there's an MLS up in Washington state that's already figured this out. And this just shows you the difference perfectly. Okay, remember that whole debate about referral fees where NAR, with its giant board and 1,500-person delegate body, ended up rejecting transparency? Well, compare that to the Northwest MLS, or NWMLS. They saw the exact same issue in their market, and on June 25th, they just issued a new disclosure form. Done. No bureaucracy, no giant debate. They just saw a problem and fixed it for their local market. Simple as that. And the lesson here is so, so powerful. When you put the power in the hands of the local organizations that actually run the marketplace, they can move so much faster. They're way more responsive to what agents and consumers actually need. Real change happens locally. And that right there brings us to the huge opportunity we've been talking about. Instead of this national one-size-fits-all code, what if every MLS created its own modern code of cooperation that just applied to everyone using their system? And this local code is actually pretty simple. It's built on just 3 pillars. 1, you have to follow the state license law. If you're not in good standing with the state, you're out. 2, clear, enforceable rules for professional conduct. Honest listing data, how showings work, respecting agreements. And 3, high standards for transparency, just like NWMLS did. Mandate the disclosure of all referral fees and compensation. And the impact? Oh, it's huge. These rules are part of the MLS agreement, so they're actually enforceable. They apply to everybody equally. All of a sudden, the whole realtor versus non-realtor thing, it just becomes irrelevant. Everyone in the market has to play by the same high standards. So what you're doing is opening up competition, while at the same time raising the bar for everyone. It's a win-win. And that is the fundamental shift right there. It means that maintaining high professional standards doesn't have to be tied to a national membership anymore. They can be defined and enforced right where the business is actually happening, at the local MLS. Which leaves us with one last question to think about. We hear it all the time, right? All real estate is local. Well, if that's true, then shouldn't our professional standards be local too?